I've never read of any other leader who would say, I'd rather go to prison for my people. He didn't have to do that. He had a choice.
For him, it was easier to move from the boardroom, talking to all these business people, talking to all these politicians, and thereafter go out there.
What Nelson Mandela and his colleagues have done is they've cleared the path and allowed us to now have the opportunity to be what we want to be.
The primary inspiration that Nelson Mandela offers South Africans is the long haul, the commitment to a long process. It's not about a quick fix.
Johannesburg, city of gold, city of dreams. Sometimes called Egoli, sometimes Jozi. The city started off as a mining claim on the vast South African grasslands or Highveld. It now has the best infrastructure of any city in Africa, and quite a few beyond. At just over a century old, in some ways, it's still a rough mining town with grand ambitions, or perhaps grand pretensions. It's a city that has spawned huge multinationals, whose founders remain household names. It also funded one of the world's most repressive systems of government, apartheid. And its demand for mine workers destroyed families from the Cape to the Congo. But whether capitalist or communist, rebel or landlord, it has always been driven by dreamers. Today, that tradition continues. Midrand is halfway between Johannesburg and Pretoria. It has mostly grown from the veld in just the last decade. Shopping malls like this one are sprouting every few miles to provide goods that this fast-growing middle class needs. And it is in places like this that the new generation of dreamers can be found.
One-sided, I take it.
One-sided.
Langi Mogase is busy dealing with customers at her store.
It's definitely this one.
She recently moved into premises at Carlswald Shopping Centre, fulfilling an ambition she had been nurturing for years.
I think it's very important that whatever business that you want to enter, you need to do research. You need to not just do it for the sake of, I think it's going to make money. It's important that when you get into it, you understand what is it about, and you must love it, you must enjoy it, you must see yourself being able to waking up in the morning and getting excited and looking forward to it.
Langi is one of a new, growing force of young black entrepreneurs, emerging after the end of apartheid.
That's the best discount.
One of the people that have inspired Langi is this man, Nelson Mandela. Mandela's arrival in Soweto after his release from 27 years in prison is one of Langi's enduring memories.
I remember the excitement, that's when we really learned about our country and what it used to be. We even learned the new word democracy, I know it has always been there, but for us, it was a new word, what it means, and exercising our rights. And it opened a lot of doors and, brought a lot of equality in the country. We're not there yet, but we are getting there. I've never read of any other leader who would say, I'd rather go to prison for my people. He didn't have to do that. He had a choice. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go to prison because of, the people I do not know, but just because they are South Africans. 5 times
Langi is just one of a growing force of young, black, independent South African entrepreneurs. Even more directly affected by Nelson Mandela was this entrepreneur. Sonwabile Ndamase.
Shortly after he was released, and thereafter I visited the family as normal as I always do. And then I was introduced to Tata by Mama to say, this is Sonwabile Ndamase, is one of the Pondo guys, or whatever. Then he started to say, oh, are you also Pondo? What are you to Chota Ndamase? Then I started to tell, no, he's my uncle. And then he started to say, oh, I hear that by Nomzamo that you can design. What can you do for me? And then I said, oh, Tata, I can do anything. Just ask. I do shirts, I do. I was like a kid, in the candy shop, trying to, I can eat this and this. And then he started saying, no, okay, fine. Cool down, Fago. Bring me anything that I could see, and then let's talk from there.
The Madiba shirts became one of the hallmarks of Mandela's presidency. They were practical.
For him, it was easier to move from the boardroom, talking to all these business people, talking to all these politicians, and thereafter go out there and address the rally and talk to the masses. And the masses as well can still be in a position of communicating with him.
And they were a fashion statement.
It was showcasing the revolution of fashion, that fashion is evolving with time, and also politicians are also playing the role as in terms of changing the situation and the scenario of the government of the day. And that on its own then was also showcasing that now we are free.
But more importantly, the Mandela shirt announced the arrival of a new, proudly African South Africa on the international scene.
When other statesmen were dressing in suits, now you could see him, identify him with the shirts among. So you could just only say that tall man with the shirts among the other statesmen.
Another entrepreneur concerned with developing an African identity, in this case an urban African identity, is Wandile Msomi. A renowned skateboarder, Wandile recently started his own company, Funisu Skateboards. Its Zulu name and designs are already getting international attention.
Even with my company now, our first attempt at board graphics with my friend Zwandile, who's my art director, we ended up getting into a Rockport book, and Rockport's a big publisher. It's like our first attempt, and that shows you the craving that people have for what is African and what is urban.
Wandile not only helps train and sponsor local skateboarders, he also actively promotes awareness of urban Africa.
What up, God? How you doing? You alright? I'm African, you know what I mean? And I'm not only just South African. That's why I want to be able to go to Nigeria wax a legend Nigerian skated. I want to be in Egypt skateboarding. Like, I want to do all those things.
Shooting a movie for the brand, Wandile practices at a downtown skate spot. He is not the only entrepreneur at work this Sunday morning. These young businessmen are living their dream and proving that the entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well amongst black South Africans.
We believe that South Africans still have that thing inside of them that they need to come out, that they need to bring out. Business, style, connecting business with style, you know, that's what we're all about. Obviously business is about making money, but we're making it fun for ourselves. Like, we do tattoos, and this is a hip, as you can see what I'm wearing. We're doing watches, accessories, like this is from Hong Kong. This is a watch that was designed here but was made in Hong Kong. Then we brought this style back into Pretoria just to add a little flavor in the teenagers and the youth of today.
After Mandela stepped down from the presidency in 1999, he and his unmistakable shirts continued to grace the world stage. Thanks to his moral authority, he was increasingly in demand as an international diplomat and peacemaker who worked hard to advance his continent. His busy schedule centered around a rather special building in Johannesburg.
Welcome to the Nelson Mandela Foundation. This has been the post-presidential office of Nelson Mandela since 1999, and we're in the process of converting it into the Nelson Mandela Center of Memory. I'll take you down the passage and show you where his office has been, just down here. The plan is for us ultimately to create a permanent exhibition on his life and times, right down the passage we've just been walking down and ending here with the office as it is, as you see it, as a permanent memorial to him. These are things that he wants to have around him. An example is that picture over there. He said to me about 4 years ago, I must have a picture of Walter Sisulu. And so I talked to Peter Magubane, who donated that framed picture. The next time that Madiba came into the office, as he walked through, he saw the picture, and his only comment was, Walter's with us today. But that illustrates, you know, here for example, this book, it's been his favorite book over the last 3 or 4 years. It's a massive one on Muhammad Ali, and he would often just sit at the desk and for 45 minutes or so just be paging through, reading text, looking at images. You'll see there's a photograph of Muhammad Ali right behind his desk. So this is where he would sit, and the pictures that you see around here are ones that are especially meaningful to him. I mean, this one, for example, is the only image of him with President Obama. And it was taken in 2005 when Madiba was in Washington. They met very briefly. This was taken by an amateur. I think it was on someone's cell phone, actually. And this particular print was made and given to Madiba as a gift by President Obama last year.
In 2004, Nelson Mandela officially retired from public duty. But his dream of a proud, successful Africa saw him campaign untiringly for the World Cup, which South Africa successfully hosted in 2010. In spite of health issues, Mandela remained busy, even after the World Cup. The foundation building has been turned into the Nelson Mandela Center of Memory, housing treasured Mandela memorabilia.
In a way, he's still a prisoner, you know. He was released in 1990 straight into another form of captivity. He still to this day can't decide what he's going to do on a particular day. He's still, performing duties, and his own fame doesn't allow him to just be a human being in charge of his own life. The primary inspiration that Nelson Mandela offers South Africans is the long haul, the commitment to a long process. It's not about a quick fix. We need to remember that the damage that was done during the apartheid period was extreme, is that our society was torn apart. It's not going to be fixable in one generation. It's going to take several generations.
Despite his health, Mandela remains a beacon of hope, an example for a new generation of South Africans determined to create their own future.
What Nelson Mandela and his colleagues have done is they've cleared the path and allowed us to now have the opportunity to be what we want to be.
Or bringing your lawyers.
Yeah, when we were at school. What's the thing?
Ernest Kakana was a pilot for South African Airways before starting K5 Aviation,
Entering your destinations.
a fully black-owned charter company that runs Citation and Learjets, propeller planes and helicopters. It's a tough business environment.
Our generation is paying what they call the black tax. In order for us to be taken equally, we have to perform 150% better than our peers, than our white peers, our white counterparts. And that's unfortunately the game that our generation, our business generation, is cutting at this stage. And I'm very open about it. We have to be that much better than our white counterparts to be taken equally. Which is, it's not fair. That's why we call it the black tax. It's just because there's still transformation. There's a lot of skepticism about, oh, you're black, can you actually fly? Only in the minds of South Africans. But you cross the border, wow, what an achievement. That's great. 6 your control column, left, right, pulling towards you, you go up, push it towards you, you go down. This is a brand new Mustang. We're not offering 30, 40-year-old aircraft and saying, well, we're just entering with what we could find. This is a brand new airplane. So we have top of the market, top of the range, new technology aircraft.
Nelson Mandela may not be able to see it, but K5 would fit nicely into his dream of a proud, independent Africa.
We go to Kenya, we go to Ghana on a regular basis, we've been to Nigeria, we've been to Bamako, we've flown to Mauritius, Maputo, Botswana, you name it. We basically cover the continent.
Kakana is clearly passionate about his company, but it all came about because he dared to dream.
I wanted to fly airplanes, and the only way to fly is to become a pilot. Now, you have to think about that for a second because it doesn't really make sense. So I never grew up saying, oh, I want to be a pilot, I want to wear the uniform with the stripes and the funny hat. No. I'd look out the window and see, oh, there's a 737. I want to know what it's like to fly. I want to be able to fly that. And along my 15 years, I've managed to tick off quite a few blocks.
How much? This is quite nice.
Langi's business may be a lot smaller than K5, but there are still some big responsibilities. Langi employs members of her family, and then there is the weight of history.
Oh, no, but that is excluding elimination. I feel very responsible that I cannot now blame the government back then because the situation is completely different. I have the same, actually even more chances as a black South African in this country. So there's no excuses. So I feel responsible. I have to make it. I have to break boundaries and live life to the fullest. No excuses. Yes.
18 years after democracy, however, South Africa's political landscape is changing. And Nelson Mandela's African National Congress, or ANC, is changing too.
I used to going with me now. If you see them excited because they think that now they are going out.
Tera Lakota served time as a political prisoner on Robben Island alongside Nelson Mandela. He has left the ANC to start a new party.
Policy-wise, there's nothing that changed from what the ANC stood for and so on. On the other hand, there's a difference. There's always a tragic gap between ideal and reality. That spirit, that selflessness has not characterized, certainly does not characterize the current leadership of the African National Congress, because we see many in that leadership who are taking for themselves and their families and so on resources sorely needed to change for the better the conditions of life of the people. Budgets that are put out and just disappearing as a result of corruption.
9, 8, 7, 6.
At a TV studio in Johannesburg, Justice Malala hosts the Justice Factor, where robust political debate is the norm.
The ANC's hegemon reasserting itself. I think it's worrying.
Today, one of his guests is Zwelinzima Vavi. Vavi leads COSATU, a key ANC ally.
You say the ANC has failed. Why do you remain in alliance with a party that's failing your constituency so much?
No, we're talking about economic terms. We're saying in economic terms, we have the political medals, but the actual jewelry reside elsewhere. But the point that we are emphasizing and underlining through the march on Wednesday is that even in economic terms, we must begin to see real benefits accruing to the working class as well.
These protesters want a greater slice of South Africa's $400 billion economy. And in their impatience, they have little time for yesterday's leaders.
I think Nelson Mandela, where he's sitting, he knows the truth. I think it's old now. It's our duty, this generation, to take the direction and move forward. He has played his role. Our role is to make sure that our country is transformed to another level.
This is commodification of the West Coast.
You cannot forever tell people that, no, wait, we're getting to it. I think there's also an interesting impatience on the part of the ANC leadership. Hence the emergence of all these debates about this constitution is holding us back from achieving 1, 2, 3, these laws or these sunset clauses or that other. And it's almost as if people are looking around for something to clutch onto, to blame for their lack of success.
According to Justice Malala, this is the reason for demands that today's leaders effect greater transformation, ensuring the economy is more accessible, more equitable.
It's good that we're having these battles. I think they make us better. I'd rather have this now than a virtual silence or a clamp down by the state on these kinds of debates. And I think our transition will hopefully be different to many others which have not been that successful.
And thanks to the Centre of Memory, Nelson Mandela's ideas may be part of that debate too.
You cannot deny that with the current system, there's this feeling of alienation, and that alienation will lead to greater problems down the line, and that alienation is what we're trying to deal with. So the center will continue to put a lot of energy into those changes that we want to see in the economy and the role of young people.
The commission of old stamp is still not there, even though the signage.
Oh, remind me tomorrow.
It's been a long day, and Langi Magase is leaving for home. It's too early to see how successful her venture is going to be, but she's determined to apply some of the lessons she's learned from one of the country's greatest dreamers.
Hi. I'm gonna change today, okay? But tomorrow. Thank you. He knew that he will he'll go to prison, but yes, he will one day be a president. And his attitude is what also attracted everyone else. So there's a lot to learn in terms of just being patient and waiting. And it goes back to, if you really want something bad and you believe in it, you will wait. You will go through the process, and it will happen. And Nelson Mandela is a great example of that.
Home for Langi is a typically middle-class housing complex, within commuting distance of her new business. A single mother that gives her time to shop. And on this day, share a glass of wine with her sister Victoria. Their lives illustrate just how far South Africa has come.
It's nice, hey? This is very nice. It is.
But their start in life was very different. One of Victoria's earliest memories is of political violence around their township home in the lead up to the 1994 elections.
When I think that one of my first earliest memories of childhood is walking over dead bodies in the Val in Sebokeng, and that was pre-94. But here I am, and I'm living in a completely different story. I'm living in a story that has positivity, that has a lot of expectation. I'm a completely different generation as to what my earliest memory is, and I'm not that old. I'm only 24. So so you can imagine. To know that we can come from such tremendous, heinous bloodshed to a country that has a constitution, that has politicians who has freedom of speech. So even when there is corruption, we can say something about it. We can expose them. We can try and force change to happen. That is amazing. That's incredible.
In his autobiography, Nelson Mandela writes in the closing lines, "After climbing a great hill, you only find that there are many more hills to climb." It's a message of patience, strength, fortitude, endurance. A sober if practical ending, but the warning in it may be lost on those already reaping the benefits of freedom. What won't be forgotten is the man who helped make sure that South Africa's great hill of freedom could be climbed at all.
Like we can understand each other.
Yes.
Like that is too great.
That we thank you for what you have done, Rescue the community.
Thank you, Madiba!
We can't sit on our laurels and say we have now achieved dignity and that's all. We have some way to go. And 18 years in the life of a nation is nothing. 18 years may be a lot in the life of an individual, but we have a lot of. It won't happen in our lifetimes, not in my lifetime, certainly.
It's a sad history in a way, but it has brought a lot of greatness. Madiba is very old right now, and we love the man. Even in the next 10, 20 years, we'll still be talking about him, and our children and our children's children will be talking about him.